now is Robert Spencer, director of Jihad Watch, and national security expert, Mr. Scott Wheeler. Did you guys hear that? He said Israel has no right to exist and America has no right to exist. Mr. Spencer, we were on Beck last night. We talked about it when he made that dramatic statement. What was going through your mind? I saw you shaking your head almost in disbelief.
See, what I think Mr. Scheuer doesn't understand is that it's not so easy to disengage ourselves from Israel or from any of our other alliances, because he's talking about the founding fathers and foreign entanglements. But, you know, that was 200 years ago, and the situation is very different. With the Islamic jihadists who are trying to take power now in Egypt, trying to change the whole nature of the Middle Eastern political landscape right now, they have a program that encompasses not only the destruction of Israel, but ultimately the destruction of the United States as well. They're going to keep coming no matter what. And if Israel is destroyed, they will be substantially emboldened. And we will see terror attacks, and we will see disruption in the United States from Islamic jihadists like we've never seen before, that will make 9/11 look like a picnic.
What about it, Scott Wheeler? Do you agree with Mr. Spencer?
Well, I think he makes an excellent point. But also Scheuer represents the view of others in the national security apparatus. I've met many of them. They have I sat in disbelief one day listening to someone explain, a very high-ranking official in an intelligence agency, explain that very same scenario to me. And it is striking. We've seen over the years, even in some cases, well, I'll tell you right now, we have Sephardic Jews who could be translating Arabic texts and Arabic interceptions of phone calls. Our U.S. government won't let them because they say it will offend the Muslim translators. We have a serious problem in one aspect of this.
All right, well, talk to us about the Muslim Brotherhood. You have a little experience with that. You know a little bit about that group. Are they as dangerous as we are being led to believe?
Absolutely, they're more dangerous than we're being led to believe. When I hear people say that they had something to do with Hamas, that's ludicrous. The Palestinian Committee of the Muslim Brotherhood created Hamas. They were the godfather of Hamas. Ayman al-Zawahiri, the #2 guy at Al-Qaeda, was Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. These are his pals. They're jockeying for position to take control of the country.
Mr. Spencer, additionally, any ties to Al-Qaeda, Taliban?
Absolutely. Abdullah Azzam is the co-founder of Al-Qaeda. He came out of the Brotherhood. He founded Al-Qaeda with Osama bin Laden. And like Mr. Wheeler says, Hamas styles itself in its charter as the Muslim Brotherhood for Palestine. And the Muslim Brotherhood also, we should remember, from the captured internal document that I also mentioned last night, is dedicated in its own words to eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within. They're not going to stop. They're not going to be satisfied were Israel destroyed. They're going to keep coming, and they'll have this huge victory under their belt that will only embolden them.
Let me bring in tonight's all-star panel. On the left, radio show host Garland Nixon. On the right, Bo Dietl of Bo Dietl Associates, and Kimberly Guilfoyle, Fox News anchor and legal analyst. Let me go to you, my friend. What do you think of all this? I think you've been on the show saying Mr. Obama is handling everything right, including foreign policy.
Well, let me say this. I'm familiar with Mr. Scheuer over at Georgetown, and he's no fool. But I think, you know, he said some things that make a lot of sense over the course of time. The problem I have is if he wants to be a part of the conversation, he has to recognize the sensitivity of this conversation. If he wants to be a real part of the conversation, he's got to tone it down. That kind of rhetoric's going to do nothing but get doors slammed in his face.
Answer the question.
Okay.
Obama's said, Mr. Mubarak, a nice quick transfer, hurry up, let's get out, take a G6 in gold and get over to Paris. Why? What's the rush?
Well, I think number one, we're at the tail end of 60 years of this thing, and it's a mess. I think right now it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I do believe that if you remember President Obama's Cairo speech, he said we would support those who supported, and he went over all of the tenets of democracy.
But my concern, Kim Guilfoyle and Bo, let me start with Kim. My concern is that we rush Mubarak out, and then we're stuck with someone who may be backed by the Muslim Brotherhood.
That's a very valid concern. It is dangerous to even have the kind of idea that we can just have whoever pops up. Right now, the only people who have shown organization and precision and political skill, the Muslim Brotherhood. So that's what you're going to be left to. It is, from a global diplomatic perspective, it's grossly irresponsible to even in any way facilitate them being in that position. He should stay in for now. He's already agreed.
Mubarak out quickly enabling that situation?
But there's already an end date. It's going to take time to make a transition that is responsible and in a democratic fashion. That's what we should be encouraging. He has already agreed to the demands and is leaving.
You know, Egypt is probably the most moderate of all the countries around the Gulf there. And these people are rioting there. A lot of people don't realize employment. They don't have food for their families. There's a lot of college educated under the age of 30, the majority of that population. What America should be doing is America should be sending in C-130s with food, with good things for families to show how American supports a peaceful change to democracy, and let the people vote like we have a right to vote for our president.
Peaceful change in democracy. Guys, put up the Mubarak full screen with the quote. He says, quote, earlier today, he said, "I'm fed up after 62 years in public service. I've had enough. I want to go. But if I resign today, there'll be chaos. Excuse me. Mr. Spencer, what do you think of that? Do you agree that there would be chaos if Mubarak stepped down?
Well, actually, there might not be chaos. There might be an orderly transition to a government that would be superficially democratic. But I think that any government that's going to come in after Mubarak is going to be like Kerensky coming in after the Tsar in the Russian Revolution, and only be there for a short period before the much more radical element takes over. Right. And that would be, in this case, the Muslim Brotherhood.
I have to disagree. I'm in the security business, and when you just leave and you have any kind of structure of security, structure of government, and you just leave, that's wide open to people robbing each other, people robbing stores. My whole thing is
the Brotherhood is going to take it.
No, my whole thing is let him stay. Let him stay in there and let him open up a transitional thing. Let's get elections there. Let's do it right. But by walking out, you're going to have a riot.
And let's not forget, Mubarak has said if he steps down now, it could be, in fact, an opening for the Muslim Brotherhood.
That's right.
They are already jockeying for position. We have leftist groups here in the United States already making plans to go over and work with the Brotherhood to help them establish a government there.
You know what's strange?
Let's not forget.
Garland, let me just tell you something. We had Bob Beckel on this show. We've had people from the left for the last week telling us, the Muslim Brotherhood, not even a factor. They wouldn't get 20% of the vote if there was a vote in Egypt. Now we're hearing Mubarak leaves. He himself says it's likely going to be.
Well, of course he would say that because he doesn't want to leave power. He doesn't want to lose power in that $1 billion a year he's been stealing for the last 30 years. But the thing is, the Muslim Brotherhood does not have the support of the people. There was a few years back, you remember, there were a lot of bombings of civilians, and that turned the population away from the radical element. And they don't have the horsepower in there to take over.
Democracy.
Nevertheless, they have the organization and the skill set to achieve their goals and effectuate a leadership position there immediately.
Yes,
if you allow an absence of leadership, a vacuum to exist, they will step in. This isn't wild speculation. This is gross.
Lenin and the Bolsheviks were never a majority in Russia.
Don't forget, too, Obama made it a point to invite 10 members of the Muslim Brotherhood to his speech in Cairo.
Right.
Guys, we're going to leave it there for now, but don't go anywhere. We're going to bring back Egypt in the next segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Does America have a right to exist? You bet it does. The Fox Business Network, the power to prosper. And that's okay.
Countries come and go through history. I've listened all my life, sir, to the refrain that Israel has a right to exist. Well, all people have a right to defend themselves, including Israel, but no country has a right to exist. The United States doesn't have a right to exist.
I just thought we needed to hear that one again. Meanwhile, what kind of game is Mubarak playing today? He told ABC News, quote, "I'm fed up after 62 years of service. I've had enough. I want to go. If I resign today, there will be chaos." Here's the thing, though, Kim. I think you hit on a very, very important point. We need to do this. We need to talk about this. If Mubarak were to step down today and the violence that we're seeing in the street continued, who takes power? Muslim Brotherhood. Is that okay? It's democracy, but is that okay?
Well, no, it's not okay. It's actually irresponsible from a global perspective in terms of creating more unrest, strife, violence, and disarray in the Middle East. This is a pivotal point in time in history. People need to take heed and not be making irresponsible statements saying that it's fine for Israel to end.
Guys,
you have to allow someone else to rise up in the democratic process and have the will of the people put them in an orderly fashion, non-violent.
Do we have time for an orderly fashion?
No, there's no democratic tradition in Egypt. They're not going to suddenly become Jeffersonians tomorrow.
So what happens?
Well, what happens is what's already happening, and that there is poverty, there is a whole lot of trouble in the society, and the Muslim Brotherhood is able to exploit that and say, see, it's because we don't have Islamic rule,
so what's the
and
answer?
Allah
Keep
is,
Mubarak
obedience to Allah is the thing.
Keep Mubarak in place
well,
until,
maybe a regime that could succeed Mubarak that would keep the Brotherhood at bay would probably be
Is there
best
one?
for America.
Yeah,
is there
where
one?
is that? Who is
That's,
that?
that's very difficult.
What the administration, the Obama administration could do for once is take some leadership, go in and make a deal with Mubarak to gradually phase him out
Transition.
I
while
like
laying
that.
the groundwork for a democratic replacement for him.
But you can't bring this broken down valise that's been gone for 25 years for the UN and bring him back and think he's going to take charge. The guy that hasn't been there in 20 years. You've got people, you got good Egyptian people there that believe in democracy. There are leaders there. But again, we have to be able to do a peaceful transition and make it happen before they have elections.
Garland, however, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. If we did that, if Mr. Obama went over there, as Scott suggested, and Obama says, hang on, we'll handle this, I have a hunch that the right is going to take some heat.
Well, not only that, everybody, our country would take some heat, and I'm not just saying President Obama. Right now, I think a good idea is to sit back a little bit and watch, because if we go in and strike some kind of bargains, whatever we do, and it turns out ugly, which in a vacuum of power in the Middle East, they often turn out ugly, then we're going to take all the blame, and the Egyptian people are going to say, we could have handled this if America just hadn't come in and screwed it all up. I think we need to sit on our hands for a little while and see what happens.
We already own the failure. Obama has encouraged the demonstrators. We own the failure now. We need to get in there. Yeah. And make sure
But we
it's
also have to bring food to people that are starving and show that America cares about the people. When you show people you care about them, when people are beating each other up in the street, now when you get food and supplies to them,
It hasn't worked in Afghanistan.
Well, you
They
want
don't
to know
love us
something?
anymore.
Yeah, but Afghanistan is not Egypt. Egypt is very intelligent.
Are you
people.
concerned,
same
gentlemen, are you
ideology.
guys concerned about what's going on in Jordan and Yemen now?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's
Exactly.
Islamists trying to gain power and to institute Islamic rule. In Afghanistan, it's a very apt analogy because you have a very religious populace, and so all these hearts and minds initiatives have done nothing because they don't dislodge the core belief that the infidel is not to be trusted and that Islamic law is the law that ought to be in place in the society.
Where?
And that's in Afghanistan.
Where?
But the Muslim Brotherhood has the same worldview for Egypt. In Yemen, in Jordan, there are groups also that are trying to institute the same kind of thing, also in Tunisia.
But I
Their
don't
playbook,
think
Eric.
Right now is the opportune time to, like Bo said, Egypt is a very is more of a cosmopolitan country than any of the other Middle Eastern countries.
Right.
They're moderate. We can go in and show them a better way than the Muslim Brotherhood,
You're
the
right.
radical fundamentalists.
When you have Pakistan,
Majority, the millions of Egyptians that actually are moderate and reasonable, they don't want the Muslim Brotherhood to take over. However,
right.
this is a
How do you
very
know that?
because
Yeah, but
if
how do you
look
know
at-
that?
If there really are
because
so
if you
many
look
of
at
them,
the
why
facts
don't they have a leader?
Well, because
Is
there's
Kim
violence
right?
and
Is Kim-
unrest in
is
the
Kim
streets,
right
and that is a
that-
very vocal, organized minority that will step into the
Is
leadership
Kim right?
vacuum,
This is
and
very
we will be in
important. Is
big
Kim
trouble.
right that the masses you're seeing throwing bottles at the
I don't
government
think so.
forces?
I mean, with all
do,
respect.
do they not want the Muslim Brotherhood? Are
Well,
they?
you know, they're showing pictures of Mubarak with the Star of David on his forehead. They're asked on the street, why do you hate Mubarak? And they say, because he's maintained peace with Israel.
But that's
But I don't-
the
That's the
protest.
man on
But I don't think this.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
the
think this.
protesters on
Yeah,
it.
but
You know,
these
when you
alleged
take
moderates that we've never
Pakistan,
seen anywhere.
take Pakistan, for
They don't have any
instance.
There are the
leadership.
millions of
Right.
Egyptians that exist and are living peacefully and are not out
Sure,
on the
but
streets
what do they really
rioting
believe?
and
What
beating
kind of
people.
government
The problem
do they
is you got to
support?
take
They've
a
never-
country
there's
like
never emerged a leader.
Here's a
that
perfect
was-
example.
That's what you need.
Pakistan, where a woman gives water to Muslims, a Christian woman, she's sentenced to hang for blasphemy. The governor
the
that
kind of
goes,
regime
the
we're
governor
gonna see.
goes to support gets shot 40 times. The
Well,
guy
right.
kills
The
her, they
Muslim
want to run
Brotherhood
out.
wants to
Very
institute
quickly,
That's
Garland,
what
very
they
quickly.
want.
Sharia law.
But I don't think this is really about religion. It's about unemployment, inequality, and autocratic governments.
but
and
that's
that's
not
why
gonna
it's all.
change, Garland.
You're right.
That's not gonna change
You're
very
right. And,
quickly.
and,
That's what
and
the blood
these people are not going to be wearing burqas,
They
and
say
they're
we've
not
got
going to go under
unemployment and
Sharia law.
inequality because
Not in
we're
Egypt.
following
They're
the
wearing
way of
burqas.
God. They say we've got unemployment and inequality because we're not following the way of God. We've got to institute Sharia, Islamic law, and then everything will be okay. And that's how they're selling themselves.
We're going to have to leave it there. We're going to say thank you to Robert Spencer and Scott Wheeler.